Hello, and thank you very much for joining us. In this module, we would do a deep dive into a chartered engineer application for the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, IMechE. So this is an application form. It is divided into 6 sections, and we'll just take you through the form. Section 1, the candidate would have to provide personal information. So this is pretty straightforward. Personal details, employment details. Okay, so that's under section 1 and part A, so personal and employment details. And then under part B, your education, so undergraduate and or postgraduate. Pretty straightforward information. And then additional information is provided under part B. For part C, you're expected to select your industry classification. So again, this is straightforward. So click the industries that apply to you. Under section D, you're expected to talk about your preferred interview option. So whether it's virtual or in person. And then under part E, this is publicity information. So feel free to click or leave it unchecked. Under part F, you provide a summary of your responsibilities and achievements. So this is like a CV, and the candidate has basically started from 2014. So the candidate started as a mechanical engineer, put down their roles and responsibilities, and then it continues: lead maintenance engineer, maintenance manager, turbine engineer. In many cases, when you present your experience, they would like to see progression. So for instance, a candidate might start off as a graduate engineer and then get promoted as the years goes on. It shows progress. So put in your information as per your CV, and when you put in this information, try to include the UK-SPEC. So talk about something you've done under competence A, in terms of your knowledge and understanding, competence B, competence C, the project management and financial. It's very important. So for instance, if you look at this bullet point, the candidate is basically taking off on competence C because he or she is talking about budget. You can include project management as well under competence C, leadership under competence C. You can talk about health and safety, which is under competence E, and also what you did with regards to sustainability. But the main ones would be the technical side. So they would like to see what exactly you did in terms of the decision making, independent decision making, and solving technical problems. Section 2 is on personal competence statement. So this is where we talk about the different UK-SPEC competencies. Starting with competence A on knowledge and understanding. Now the thing to note is that you have 400 words approximately per attribute. And if you times that by 5 attributes, you come up with 2000. So it means you don't have that much room to work with. So make sure every information you put in counts. Very, very important. You do not have to list all your projects. I would say 2 projects is reasonable. But even if it's 1 project, the most important thing is for you to show evidence that you are meeting the UK-SPEC. Now, this is an example on knowledge and understanding that a candidate has produced. Do not hesitate to contact us if you want a customized support for your report. We can actually interview you, get the relevant information from you regarding what you did, and produce a report for you. So that's a service we can provide. But this is just an example from a candidate, just to give you an idea for what to consider as you produce your report. So this is on knowledge and understanding. I'll just go through this paragraph with you. So the candidate said, throughout my engineering career, I have worked with different industries such as manufacturing and nuclear power generation. In each industry I have worked, I have sought out and understood the requirements regarding knowledge, legislative compliance, best practice, and guidance. My career development within a new organization is to develop my competency and proficiency within the industry. This is started with a plan to extend my knowledge, skills, and experience through training, education, and exposure. Examples of developing and maintaining my theoretical knowledge include reading of technical papers, reviewing latest standards relevant to my role and industry, attending seminars, experimenting, research, learning from subject matter experts, and training. For example, I led a team responsible for designing and installing a project to improve reactor safety instrumentation system. And to ensure I had sufficient knowledge, I completed specialized training and experience to gain TUV Functional Safety Engineering certification to meet the competency requirement. So basically, under this competence, you are to provide evidence of how you've extended your knowledge or you applied your knowledge. So a good example of how you can do that is to consult with subject matter experts so they can do some knowledge transfer to you. You can, in this example that the candidate provided, you can attend a specialized training like the TUV Functional Safety Engineer. I remember doing this certification in 2012. It was a 1-week course, really intense, and gives you the relevant information regarding functional safety. So these are examples of where you can extend your knowledge. The assessors are looking for proof of you extending your knowledge to the point where you are competent to provide technical solutions to problems. That's the idea. So they want to see proof of how you got that knowledge. And I'll just look at this paragraph before we move on to the next competence. So the candidate said, on one of the projects I led, I was increasing the life expectancy of cylinder liners and piston rings in a process gas compressor due to the desire for the plant to operate for longer periods between major outages. Whilst working on this project, I worked closely with manufacturers to design and test new components and ensured that the lubricating oil was free from vapor contamination from the process. I utilized my company's internal management of change procedure to minimize risk and hazards to equipment and people. The other thing you need to bear in mind and this is something you should consider for the interview, is you need to know what phases, and you need to obviously tell them what phases of the project you were involved in. Were you involved in the complete life cycle? Was it just the detailed design phase? And also in terms of change and change management, you are not just making changes on your own. It goes through a process. So you let them know what the process is like. Someone is proposing the change, someone is reviewing the change, someone is approving the change, and someone is implementing the change. So make sure that you make that very clear in your reports and, very importantly, in the interview. We'll move over to competence B, and this one is on design, development, and solving engineering problems. There are three sections to it. So there's B1, B2, B3. Just like for the A competence, there was A1 and A2. Try as much as possible to provide an example for each of the sub-competence. So for instance, under B1, provide an example of how you have taken an active role in the identification and definition of project requirements, problems, and opportunities. So a very good example would be a specification. Writing a specification for the purchase of smart instrumentation is a very good example. So in the specification, you're telling the vendor what type of equipment they have to provide. Very good example. Another example could be performing a feasibility and viability on a technology. So all those things are being considered. And when you are in this phase, you're basically having to choose between two options. So let's say you have two solutions. You have option A and option B. You would need to do some research, look at the pros and the cons of each technology, and arrive at a decision. You would, for instance, need to consider safety. So how has safety been incorporated in the design of both options? So that could be the basis for you deciding on which option to go with. And sub-competence B2 is how have you identified the appropriate investigations and research needed to undertake the design, development, and analysis to complete an engineering task and conduct these activities effectively. So that is on the example of going into the details. So in your specification, for instance, have you considered quality, safety, reliability? The thing to understand as you prepare your project and also your project report and also during the interview is that each of these attributes are considered for the complete life cycle. For instance, on safety, you are considering safety during the design. You would consider safety during construction. You would also consider safety after construction in terms of how the device or the component functions. The same applies to reliability. So I'll read one paragraph on the design and development. I managed the integrity of the pressure systems within the main turbine generator units at ABC Nuclear Generating Station. And this included a high pressure steam, so 570 degrees centigrade and 165 bar, warming drain lines. So through research and material testing, I identified the need for isolation and regulating valve upgrade. My research revealed erosion of the piping internals due to optimum conditions of erosion corrosion and liquid droplet impingement caused by defective isolation and regulation valves within the system. I performed surveys using latest ultrasonic technology and calculated a final financial benefit to the station of £1.7 million per annum with the valve upgrade. So this is a very good example of a business opportunity. So the business case to replace that components, it was not just the production aspect and the safety aspect, but also the financial benefit derived from that replacement. These are some of the things you're putting on the B competence, especially the B1. There was a business case for you to do that, so you put that in and you have that figure, £1.7 million. So that's an example under the B competence. We'll move over to the C competence. This is where you're expected to demonstrate your leadership, project management, commercial attributes, and things related to improvement in quality, performance improvement as well. So performance not just of your system, but performance of your team members. And it will require you to mentor people, train people, direct people, and as you interface with different stakeholders, your ability to bring people together and to resolve any conflict. So questions to consider are under C1, how have you planned the work and resources needed to enable for effective implementation of a significant engineering task or project? It talks about management of schedule and budget under C2, leading teams under C3, and C4 says, how have you brought about continuous quality improvement and promoted best practice? So let's look at one paragraph under the C competence. In my previous role at Company B, I led several production outage maintenance events. The most recent was a budget of £3.5 million and 8,000 man-hours of work completed in a 6-week period. To prepare for the outage, I developed and utilized a stage and gate process which included pre-planning, planning, preparing, execution, and review phases. During the pre-planning phase, 18 months prior to the outage, the preliminary work scope was developed using the team based on operational requirements, process requirements, projects, and planned or corrective maintenance. I used the preliminary work scope, lessons learned from previous projects, and information gathered from high-level review meetings to build a preliminary outage duration, resource for planning and execution, and budget estimates to feature in the building planning, in the business planning. So this is a very good example of not just project management, but also business acumen. These are the sort of examples you should bring out in your report. Remember, you've got just 400 words. The final paragraph talks about audits. So it's important for you to provide examples of where you have either been involved in the preparation of audits or if you've been audited yourself. Now, the D competence is on communication and interpersonal skills. So this is where you want to talk about diversity and inclusion under the D3 sub-competence. Very important. Do not leave that out. They want to see evidence of where you have worked in diverse teams. Now, diversity is not just about people of different races or backgrounds or beliefs, but also people of different industries, people of different backgrounds. An example would be someone moving from the oil and gas industry with their skills, information, their culture, their safety culture, And moving over to the nuclear industry, so it is important for you to consider that diverse background in culture and see how you can learn from that person. So it's very important. So diversity and inclusion is not just about the people, the races, but also about diversity in experience, diversity in safety culture. Very, very important. So you would be expected to have been communicating as part of your projects. So it involves oral communication and also written communication. During the interview with the IMechE, you would have opportunities to demonstrate that. So an example is, if you look at this paragraph, it talks about being employed and supporting and developing people, respecting the principles of inclusivity and diversity as per the IMechE Code of Conduct. He also or she also talked about managing small and medium-sized teams. Okay. And also in terms of communication, so communicating with people at different levels of the establishment. So it could be top management staff, it could also be contractors or people working under them. Okay. And then under the E competence, this is on personal and professional commitment. So everything regarding compliance with relevant codes of conduct, managing safe systems, sustainability, continuing personal development, and ethics. So an example we provide is the first one, the first paragraph. Throughout my career as an engineer, I have complied with relevant codes applicable to my role, such as the control of major accident hazards, the COMA, and the CDM regulations. During the projects and during outages, as part of developing competency and proficiency for my role in each industrial sector, I researched the relevant codes of practice, legislative and regulatory compliance. I led maintenance and engineering teams and ensured that technical compliance was met during the engineering activities to ensure safety of people, plant, and environment. Since joining the IMechE, I have reviewed the codes of conduct, and my conduct is aligned with the 4 ethical principles captured in the Engineering Council Statement of Ethical Principles. The candidate talks about commitments to health, safety, and environment, and also talks about sustainability, talks about development of themselves, so they are continuing personal development, and ethics, very important. So that's everything about the competencies. Like I said, do not hesitate to get in contact with us if you require support in producing a customized version of that report. Section 3 is on your organizational chart. We have a sample that we've provided for you. Okay, so feel free to use this one, or you can get in contact with us if you need help in producing one. You do not have to mention any names. All you have to do is talk about the positions. So go a few steps up and then tell us or show the teams that you manage. So in this example, the candidate is right here, and the candidate is a senior manager, and the candidate manages first line manager, the assistant, and other project technicians. Section 4 is on the development action plan. We have got a more elaborate example for you, but what the assessors are looking for is your plan. It doesn't have to be too complex. So in this case, the candidate has got 6 bullet points. You could have 5. I think a reasonable number is 6. You don't want to make it too detailed. Examples are to progress into CEng from IMechE. So that's a good short-term goal, to become chartered with the IMechE, to develop technical knowledge in turbine and general engineering, to support STEM activities in schools and in the community. The medium-term goal, that is in 2 years' time, would be to take on lead engineering roles within the business and to start a new role as a project lead, to lead a wider range of projects, and also to continue the mentoring of less experienced engineers. Over 5 years, or in 5 years, the candidate plans to become a fellow of the IMechE and also to obtain a master's degree in an engineering field. Section 5 is sponsors. Ideally, you should get a sponsor, at least one sponsor that is chartered with a professional body, preferably the IMechE. And then section 6 is your declaration. So if you're happy with the conditions that have been stated here, you sign and date. So that is a deep dive into the report. Feel free to get in contact with us and we can help you produce one. Thank you very much for watching and for listening to this module. We'll see you in subsequent modules. Bye-bye.